What we have here is a failure to communicate. Morning, evening, midnightish. Welcome, Mids Watch. How you guys doing? This one's a nice one. It's just a plain leadership failure. It's nothing too fancy, but it's good to know because constantly in the Red Pill, you see guys who talk about taking accountability, but what they really mean by that is like seeking female approval when they make a mistake, or just generally doing something wrong and not realizing it and then working on the emotions of the situation as opposed to it. You know what? I'll skip past that. You'll see in here. I'll read the report, give some thoughts that the Red Pill has kind of developed over the last 10 years. Again, Jack Ten of Hearts, the marketing expert, talks about it afterwards, and then we'll sum it up. So this man here withered from an oak to a sapling, and he feels like shit. Hindsight's 2020, but part of being a man realizes he has to apologize for mistakes. So he had a mountain bike ride planned for the weekend. Daughter and the friend. Oh no, aunt and the friend. The friend is pretty, has a nice body. My wife's nicer though, is active and shares the same interests. She's younger, has no kids. Lack of being tied down makes her adventurous and risk-taking. This combined with a personality and sense of humor makes her for a very attractive woman. In a non-married situation I pursue, however, I only communicate and hang out with her in the context of time with my aunt. She's my aunt's friend and not mine. I've even mentioned this to her after a conversation my aunt and I had. Women make shit friends for guys and shit friends for women. Women understand men, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the spiel on that one. Anyways, this is my stance. My wife, of course, sees it as something else. She's a woman prone to feels, not reality. Regardless of what I say or do, from my wife, she's your perfect type, pretty, young, thinner than me, which, yeah, a little bit, but whatever. And she does all the things you like doing. However, friend isn't really the issue with me, but it is with her. It's the impetus that's set behind all this stuff off, and the fault still lies with me. Ultimately, it's all my doing. Plan was originally for a hike, floated the idea that this was acceptable, and I invited my wife along. Plan changed to a bike ride, and yeah, I'm like, sure, why not? Changed the workout, the scenery to be nice. I said I'd come up with a plan, told my wife of the change from hike to bike. Came up with a simple up and down route that wasn't too advanced because my wife's not as good on the bikes. The girls tried floating around a new route, and I'm like, yeah, fine, make a route, give me directions, let me know by Friday. And my aunt chimed in, recommended a route north of our original location, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, he's like, at this point, I should have just stood firm and not shifted so much because I'm constantly giving my wife conflicting things. It's causing more issues there than I like to deal with, and I should have just made a decision. He's like, all right, mistake 2. I listened to my wife instead of myself. So we arrived at the trail we were going. My wife made one attempt to ascend the initial switchback entrance. Her chain popped off. She panicked and said, this is too advanced. I'm going to go the other way. She motioned towards the fire road we had approached, and I knew it intersected the first junction of the trail, crisscrosses the old thing. We had cell coverage and could communicate, and I'm like, are you sure? No answer, and I'm like, okay. I took her going up the fire road as her decision. I knew she'd be safe, and she's competent enough not to risk what she feels is unsafe. He's like, yeah, I shouldn't have let her go. Simple as that. I shouldn't have abandoned my wife and hung with the aunt and her friend. Mistake 3, I didn't check on her. Halfway through the trail, I texted her and asked, are you okay? And she's like, I'm getting an Uber. He's texting back to home. She's like, no, to the bus station. It's like, all right, be safe. A minute later, thanks, asshole. I hope she knows that if you do it to me, you'll do it to her too. Anyways, I didn't respond anymore, which that's the first thing he's done well so far. I should have just abandoned the ride at this point, told her to wait, and that I would be down as fast as possible. I abandoned her twice now. He's like, it doesn't matter what my stance is and all this stuff. Anything I come up with is a rationalization on my part that, while true, doesn't excuse my shitty behavior. And then he goes on about his job as a man, a captain, a husband, masculine force. You guys know all the buzzwords on this stuff. A real man should this and a real man should that. And it's like, Jesus Christ, I should have followed her. I should have done this. I know I need to live for me, but somebody needs to tell me how to do that. Anyways, I'm going to skip the rest. The rest is just about virtue signaling about what a real man does and never lets his little lady run into troubles and all that. And he kind of doesn't really catch on to any of these points. He's just basically flagellating himself, like flogging himself for being a sinner to the longhouse, right? So, in the aftermath, I'm on thin ice. Tensions are high, she's very sensitive, and he's like, I get it. I made some shitty decisions and blamed some of her for the problems. My abandonment of her to ride with us led to some ultra comfort-seeking behavior because she views this of me abandoning her for another woman. I keep telling her it's not true, but once again, my actions speak the opposite of my words. To compound this, my father had a stroke same day, though after the whole debacle occurred. That incident had no bearing on the initial problem, but came to light later, at which point she got the Uber, I'm guessing. I didn't find out till I got home. While it's independent to this issue, it's making a requirement of extra comfort on my part, something which is being met with hostility. Her father's fine, but under medical surveillance. I was not an oak that day. Anyways, I skipped a lot of the moralizing here because here's kind of the point, is that it's a weird thing. So like, he knows the dynamic. He knows the wife is jealous. He knows that bit of dread there. Tried to bring her along. He's doing all these things because he wants to appease her emotions. He's trying to convince her how she needs to feel. And that's kind of your mistake. Like, you can't tell somebody how they're supposed to feel about something. If she's jealous about another girl, like, you can't stop that. Now, at the same time, do you put yourself in that position or not? There's no wrong answer to this thing. Like, obviously, from a dread perspective, seeing that another girl is like around you at any point in time sometimes is good for dread, because dread can help you with your sex life. A little bit of jealousy is never the worst thing on earth. You're just biking with a relative and their friend, so whatever. And that would be fine if you just left it at that. You know, laugh off when she's being insecure, basically treat it as something to be cocky and funny about. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. If I'm leaving you, you'll know. There's like hundreds of different ways to deal with jealousy from a girl's side of it, not the least of which is just going to Plowtown more often. Nothing helps build relationship comfort like constant orgasms, just saying. But then once he gets down there, he stops making decisions. Should have just made decisions, gone with it. To be fair, if he knew his wife wasn't on par to do these same things, he shouldn't have brought her, because the whole time it's just going to be, it's like a thing. There's actually a Rollo Tomasi article on this one called Never Take a Girl Fishing. The idea is just never bring your girl along with you when you're doing a hobby, because then all the time you spend is going to be spent on placating them instead of enjoying your hobby. So Jack comes in, focused a lot on security and safety, but it's just a failure of leadership. Your wife was being a good sport about things, but lacked the competence necessary to participate. There is a way to manage that as the captain, and you failed to do that. She went above and beyond what she felt a good first officer would do, and this only put her in a worse situation. Had she just said, I suck at bike riding, but I don't really like it anyway, then you would have told another woman to stick with the hike, or you'd have told your wife you prefer the bike and the hike, so it'll do it another time. But you didn't do either. Gotta make a decision. It's challenging for a captain to recognize these good faith efforts by our first officer and respond accordingly. We want to respond positively when our first officer initiates that they're willing to go above and beyond our expectations or responsibilities. But we also need to recognize when we're simply biting off more than they can chew, and their likelihood of failure is high, and whether that should be mitigated or not. Based on your previous posts, your wife hates falling short of your standards, but also feels insecure and quick to start hamstring that she sucks at things. So you basically created a situation where both happened. And all this reminded her is that she'll never be an outdoorsy sporty girl that she thinks is your perfect woman, and the only bad things happen is when she tries. This will manifest as a shitty comfort test, which is exactly what happened. So just move on. At some point in the future, invite her on another hiking day. She'll immediately say, no, I learned my lesson after the last time. Just go, have fun. I won't mind, it's not my thing. And if she says that, just say, I fucked up the logistics last time, and I never said otherwise. Won't happen again. If you still hate the idea of being outdoors and getting some fresh air when your husband invites you, not much I can do about that, but sleep on it and let me know for sure tomorrow. So to summarize, on these leadership efforts, again, and this is something I guess we don't talk about enough, because a lot of guys, when you're talking to them, especially early on in their journey, you're kind of like, the issue is they're incompetent or deficient in so many areas. Most of the time is spent like fixing their shit. But there reaches a point where a lot of guys have their shit together, and then they find their wives, like, you know, that what you bring to the table stuff, they actually find, oh, so it's actually not as much as you think I deserve. Now, sometimes it's true. Sometimes she really can't keep up with you. And that creates a lot of anxiety for girls. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more, you know, around the house or financially or whatever, because she's just not capable. But if you want to stick together with this kind of woman, you have to realize what her limits are. And so if you want to be, you know, a typical blue-pilled guy screwing things up, you always talk about, well, she's supposed to do this, like the Steven Crowder joke. If you guys don't know the reference, that's fine. He's like, if you really love me, you'd put on the gloves and walk the dog. Well, you know, the wife's pregnant and she's not capable of putting on the gloves and walking the dog and feeding the meds or whatever that nonsense he was bitching about in the thing. But he should know what her limits are, and then you work around them. Either don't invite her to stuff, or you accommodate stuff to meet her. I would lean on the side of just don't invite her to these things, but that's just me. You're up to make your own decisions based on what you learn. Just remember this though. As the capable captain, you have to understand what the people that you're responsible for are capable of. And then you have to know when you put them in situations where they're going to fail, and they do fail, there's nobody to blame here but you. So, something to think about. It's a little bit more advanced. Hopefully you guys learned something from it. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.